Every story leaves something behind, a whisper, a shadow. Welcome to the horror archives. Turn down the lights and step carefully, because once a story enters the horror archives, it never truly leaves.
Yard sales. Most people think of them as harmless weekend errands. Old clothes, chipped plates, someone's dusty collection of things they don't need anymore. But sometimes, mixed in with all that ordinary junk, there's something that should have stayed hidden. These are 5 true stories from people who found exactly that. And this first story was sent in by a viewer who restores antiques. He picked up a music box at a neighborhood sale in Kentucky. What happened after he brought it home is hard to explain with logic. This one is called The Music Box That Was Already Wound. The music box was already playing when I picked it up. That's the detail that still gets me, because it was sitting on a folding table in the sun, surrounded by old Tupperware and VHS tapes, and no one had touched it before me. I watched the table for 10 minutes from across the street before I even walked over. This was a neighborhood yard sale in Covington, Kentucky, last September. One of those lazy Saturday setups where half the block drags their junk to the curb. I go to these things almost every weekend. I restore and resell antiques, small stuff mostly, jewelry boxes, clocks, ceramics. It's how I supplement my income. The music box was beautiful. Dark mahogany, hand-carved floral inlay on the lid, brass hinges that were green with patina. It looked like it was from the early 1900s, and it was playing a slow, tinkling melody I didn't recognize, the cylinder still turning inside when I lifted the lid. The woman running the table was in her 60s, sitting in a lawn chair, not really paying attention. I asked her how much. She said $5. I asked her if she'd wound it recently. She looked at me like I'd asked something strange and said she hadn't opened that box in years. I bought it, took it home, set it on my workbench in the garage, and started inspecting it. The mechanism inside was pristine, which was unusual for something that old. No rust, no dust. The cylinder pins were sharp and clean, like they'd been maintained. But the winding key on the bottom was frozen. I could not turn it. It was seized completely, corroded in place. That bothered me. If the key couldn't turn, the spring couldn't be wound. If the spring couldn't be wound, the box shouldn't play. But I'd heard it. I'd watched the cylinder rotate. I set it on my nightstand that evening. Around 2 in the morning, I woke up to the melody. The same slow, unfamiliar tune, playing in the dark. I turned on the lamp and the lid was closed. I opened it. The cylinder was turning. I watched it for maybe 30 seconds before it slowed and stopped. The next morning, I tried the key again. Still frozen. I sprayed penetrating oil on it, waited, tried again. Nothing. I took the bottom panel off to look at the spring barrel. The mainspring inside was broken, snapped clean. There was physically no stored energy in that mechanism. I'm not guessing about this. I've repaired dozens of these. That box could not play. It played again that night. Same time. I know because I was already awake, waiting for it. This time I didn't open the lid. I just lay there and listened. The melody was slower, or maybe it just felt slower. And then right at the end, right before the last note, I heard something underneath the music. A voice, not words exactly, more like a breath shaped into a hum, matching the melody, like someone was singing along from very far away. I put the music box in my car trunk the next day. That night, silence. I slept fine. In the morning, I drove back to Covington to return it. The house where I'd bought it had a different family living there. A younger couple. They said they'd moved in 3 weeks ago. The sale I went to was in September. They moved in August. The woman in the lawn chair, the one who sold me the box, she didn't live there. I described her to them and the man's face changed. He said that sounded like the previous owner. She'd died in the house in July. The music box is still in my trunk. It's been 4 months. I haven't opened the trunk at night, but twice now, coming out to my car in the morning, I've noticed the trunk lid is worn. And this next story, this one shook me. A man in South Carolina finds a shoebox full of old Polaroids at a yard sale, and hidden in the stack are photos of his own house, taken from his backyard at night. This one is called the Polaroids in the shoebox. There were Polaroids of my house in the shoebox, my current house, taken from the backyard, and I bought that shoebox from a yard sale 11 miles away from where I live. This happened in March of last year in Greer, South Carolina. I'd driven out to a sale advertised on Facebook Marketplace. Older guy, maybe 70s, selling what looked like a lifetime of accumulated stuff. Tools, furniture, boxes of miscellaneous junk. I was looking for cheap picture frames for my girlfriend's birthday project, and he had a table covered in them. While I was browsing, I noticed a shoebox under the table, labeled Photos $1. I figured there might be some interesting vintage shots I could frame. I paid the $1 and took it home without looking through it. That evening, I sat on the couch and opened it. There were maybe 50 Polaroids inside, most of them faded, from the 70s and 80s based on the clothing and cars. Houses, yards, people standing in driveways. Normal stuff. Then about halfway through the stack, the photos changed. They were sharper, more recent. The color was better. And they were all of the same house. A single-story ranch with tan siding and a chain-link fence. My house. I'm not saying it looked like my house. I'm saying it was my house. I could see the dent in the gutter above the garage, where a branch fell last winter. I could see the specific arrangement of solar lights along my walkway. The photos were taken from behind my back fence, looking in through the yard toward the kitchen window. There were 7 of them, all slightly different angles, all from the back. In 3 of them, the kitchen light was on, which meant they were taken at night. In one of them, if I looked closely, I could see a shape at the kitchen window. A silhouette. My silhouette. I was standing at the sink. I called my girlfriend over. She confirmed it. That was our house, our kitchen, me at the sink. She asked me who took them. I didn't have an answer. I drove back to Greer the next morning. The old man was still set up, finishing his sale. I showed him the Polaroids and asked where they came from. He didn't seem alarmed. He said the box was from a storage unit he'd bought at auction. He buys them, sells the contents, doesn't look through everything. He gave me the unit number and the name of the facility. I called the storage facility. They confirmed the unit had been auctioned off after the renter stopped paying. They wouldn't give me the renter's name due to privacy policy. I asked if there was anything else they could tell me. The woman on the phone paused. She said the unit had been rented for 6 years, paid on time every month until October. The renter never came back after that. I went through the rest of the shoebox more carefully. Under the Polaroids, at the very bottom, there was a folded piece of notebook paper. On it was a handwritten list. Dates and times, 31 entries. I recognized the pattern almost immediately. They were all between 9 and 11 p.m., all on weeknights. Those were the nights my girlfriend worked late, the nights I was home alone. I installed cameras the next day. Motion sensor, floods in the backyard, new logs. I haven't found anything on the footage yet, but twice now the motion lights in the backyard have triggered around 10 p.m. The cameras show nothing, just the empty yard and the back fence, and beyond the fence, the dark tree line. But the lights don't trigger for nothing. Something was close enough to set them off. I still don't know who rented that storage unit. I still don't know why they stopped coming back in October. And I still don't know if stopped means they lost interest, or if it means something else. Okay, this third story. A man buys a vintage mirror at a church parking lot sale. What he starts seeing in the reflection is not his room. And eventually, it's not just a room he's seeing. This one is called the mirror with the wrong reflection. The antique mirror I bought at a yard sale showed a room behind me that wasn't there. Not a different angle, a different room. This was June of last year in Ashtabula, Ohio. A big multi-family sale in a church parking lot. One of the families had brought a full-length standing mirror, the kind with an oval glass and a wooden frame that tilts on a pivot. Victorian style. The frame was dark walnut, hand-carved with small imperfections that told me it was genuinely old. They were asking $15. I refinish furniture as a hobby, and the frame alone was worth 5 times that. I loaded it into my van and brought it home. Set it up in my spare bedroom, which I use as a workshop. The room has beige walls, a single window, a workbench, and exposed shelving. I positioned the mirror against the far wall and stepped back to see how it looked. The reflection was normal. Me, the room behind me, the window, the shelving. Everything correct. I went about my evening. The next day, I was working in the room, stripping old varnish from a dresser I was restoring. I glanced at the mirror and stopped. The room reflected behind me had wallpaper, faded floral wallpaper, yellow and green. My walls are beige and bare. I turned around. Beige walls. Turned back to the mirror. Wallpaper. I stood there for a long time just looking. The reflection showed my back, my clothes, my body, all correct. But the room was wrong. I moved to the left. My reflection moved with me. The The wallpapered room stayed consistent, the perspective shifting naturally as I moved, like a real room would. There was furniture in the reflection that wasn't in mine. A bed with an iron frame, a small wooden dresser, a window with lace curtains. The light in the reflected room was dimmer, more amber, like late afternoon through old glass. I took photos with my phone. In the photos, the mirror showed my actual room. Beige walls, shelving, workbench. The wallpaper only existed when I looked directly at it with my eyes. I told myself it was a visual distortion. Old glass, imperfect silvering. Maybe it was warping the light in a way that created a pattern my brain interpreted as wallpaper. I almost convinced myself. Then on the third day, there was someone in the reflected room. I was standing at my workbench with my back to the mirror. I turned to grab a rag and caught it in my peripheral vision. A figure sitting on the iron bed in the reflection. I looked directly at the mirror. A woman. She was older, gray hair pinned up, wearing a dark dress. She was sitting on the edge of the bed with her hands in her lap, and she was looking directly at me, not at her own reflection, at me. I didn't move. She didn't move. We just looked at each other through the glass for what felt like a full minute. Her expression wasn't angry or threatening. It was patient, like she'd been waiting. I covered the mirror with a bedsheet that night. In the morning, the sheet was on the floor. I hadn't heard it fall. I looked at the mirror. The reflected room was the same, wallpaper, iron bed, lace curtains. The woman wasn't there, but the bed was unmade. The previous days, it had been neatly made. I moved the mirror to the garage, faced it against the wall. I planned to take it to Goodwill, but kept putting it off. A week later, I was in the spare bedroom and caught myself looking at the wall where the mirror had been. The wall was bare, but in the corner of my vision, just at the edge, I could still see the wallpaper. I blinked and it was gone, but I've caught it twice more since then, always in peripheral vision, always in that room. I got rid of the mirror, took it to the dump, not Goodwill. I didn't want someone else to have it, but I don't think it mattered. Whatever was in the mirror isn't in the mirror anymore. It's in the room. And this next story is one of the most disturbing things I've ever narrated. A new father buys a cheap baby monitor at a neighbor's yard sale. It has 4 channels, but he only has 1 camera. What's broadcasting on channel 4? I'll let him explain. This one is called the baby monitor with the extra channel. The baby monitor I bought at a yard sale had a channel that didn't belong to any room in my house, and something on that channel could see my daughter. My wife and I had our first child in April 2 years ago. Money was tight. We were buying everything secondhand. A neighbor 3 doors down was having a yard sale, and they had a video baby monitor, the kind with a small handheld screen and a camera unit. $20. It worked fine when they demonstrated it. We bought it, set the camera up in the nursery, and used it that first night. The monitor had 4 channels. We set the camera to channel 1, and that's what we used. Clear picture, decent audio, good enough night vision to see the crib. For the first 2 weeks, it worked perfectly. One night I was sitting up in bed, half asleep, holding the monitor while my wife rested. The screen showed our daughter sleeping in her crib. I was cycling through the settings absent-mindedly, and I accidentally hit the channel button. Channel 2, static. Channel 3, static. Channel 4, a room, not static. A room, dimly lit, shot from a high angle like a camera mounted near the ceiling. The image was grainy and green, like older night vision. I could see a floor, bare concrete, or maybe old tile. Walls that looked like painted cinder block. A single doorway with no door, leading into darkness. And in the center of the room, a wooden chair. Empty. I stared at it for about 30 seconds, then switched back to channel 1. My daughter sleeping. Fine. I told myself channel 4 was picking up a neighbor's camera on the same frequency. Baby monitors do that sometimes. I mentioned it to my wife the next morning. She didn't think much of it either. 3 nights later, I checked channel 4 again. Same room, same angle, same chair, but the chair wasn't empty. Someone was sitting in it. A man, or what I assumed was a man, sitting very still facing the camera. The night vision made it impossible to see details, just a green-gray shape. A person motionless, staring up at the camera. I switched back to channel 1 fast. My daughter was asleep. Everything was fine. I put the monitor down and didn't touch channel 4 again for a week. But the thing is, I started noticing something on channel 1. Small things, a faint audio bled, like a second microphone was feeding into the signal. I'd hear my daughter's breathing, and underneath it, barely perceptible, another sound. A low, rhythmic sound, like someone else breathing. Slower, deeper, adult lungs. I checked the nursery, empty except for my daughter. I checked the audio on channel 1 more carefully, holding the monitor to my ear. The second breathing was there, steady and calm, layered under my daughter's. It wasn't an echo. The rhythm was different. I caved and checked channel 4. The man was still in the chair, but the camera angle had changed. It was lower now, tilted slightly, like the camera had been moved. And behind the chair, on the cinder block wall, there was something that hadn't been there before. Papers, taped to the wall. I couldn't read them in the grainy night vision, but I could see shapes on them. Rectangles, photos. The next night, the camera angle on channel 4 was different again. Lower still, closer to the chair. I could almost make out the man's features, and the photos on the wall behind him were clearer. I held the monitor as close to my face as I could, and my stomach dropped. They were photos of a baby, printed on regular paper, slightly blurry, taken from above at an angle, the same angle as our nursery camera on channel 1. I ripped the monitor camera out of the nursery wall that night, threw the whole system in the trash, bought a new monitor, different brand from a store. My wife was confused, but I showed her the photos on the wall and she understood. We called the police. They took the monitor as evidence and said they'd look into the frequency, try to triangulate the other camera. They never found anything. The channel 4 signal didn't correspond to any registered device in our area. We moved 6 months later, not just because of the monitor, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't the main reason. Our daughter is fine. She's healthy and happy and doesn't know any of this. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that man in the chair, sitting in that room, watching a screen that showed my child sleeping. And I think about how the camera angle on his end kept getting closer, like he was adjusting, getting a better look. And I think about the fact that our nursery camera was mounted to the wall with a bracket. It couldn't move, so the angle that was changing wasn't our camera, it was his. And this last story is the one that's going to stay with you. A woman in Kentucky buys a handmade quilt from a farmhouse estate sale. When she opens the seams, she finds hair sewn inside. Human hair from multiple people, and some of it is recent. This one is called the quilt with the hair sewn in. There was human hair stitched into the quilt, not on it, in it, woven between the layers of batting, stitched into the seams with deliberate, careful needlework, and some of the hair was fresh. This was October 2 years ago in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. My wife collects handmade quilts, the old Appalachian kind, and she'd found a posting online for an estate sale at a farmhouse outside of town. We drove out on a Saturday morning. The property was rural, set back from the road, surrounded by overgrown fields. The house was early 1900s, clapboard siding, tin roof, the kind of place that looks like it grew out of the ground. The sale was run by a man who said he was the deceased's nephew. The deceased was a woman named Edna who'd lived alone in the house for decades. He seemed eager to clear the place out. My wife found the quilt in a cedar chest in the upstairs bedroom. It was stunning, a double wedding ring pattern in deep reds and blues, hand-pieced, hand-quilted, with stitching so tight, and even it looked almost mechanical. The nephew said $50. My wife would have paid 10 times that. She laid it out on our bed that night, and something about the weight was off. It was heavier than it should have been for a cotton quilt. Denser. She assumed the batting was wool, which is common in older quilts. She ran her hand along the surface and stopped. She pressed down and felt something through the fabric. Something that wasn't batting. It was fibrous and tangled like a mat. She's a seamstress. She knows textiles. She got a seam ripper and carefully opened a small section along one edge. Inside, between the top fabric and the backing, mixed in with the cotton batting, were thick bundles of human hair. Long strands, some dark, some gray, some reddish brown. They were sewn in, not randomly stuffed, stitched to the batting with the same precise needlework as the rest of the quilt, anchored at intervals like the quilter wanted to make sure it couldn't shift. My wife laid the section open on the table, and we both just stared at it. There were different textures, different colors, different people. The gray hair was coarse and brittle, probably very old. The dark hair was finer, and there were a few strands, maybe 6 or 7, that were lighter, almost blonde, and they were soft. Pliable, not old. I called the nephew the next day. I didn't tell him what we'd found. I just asked about Edna, how long she'd lived there, whether she'd made the quilt herself. He said she'd lived in that house her entire life, born there, never married, never had children. She made quilts constantly. It was all she did in her later years. He said there were over 30 quilts in the house when she died. We'd only bought one. I asked carefully whether Edna had many visitors. He got quiet. He said Edna had a reputation in town. People avoided her. He didn't elaborate much, but he mentioned that over the years, a few people had gone out to buy eggs or produce from her, and some of them talked about feeling uneasy. He used the word watched. He said one woman who'd gone to buy quilting fabric from Edna swore she heard someone else in the house, footsteps upstairs, but Edna lived alone. That night I went online and searched Harrodsburg and the surrounding county for missing persons. This is a small community. Not much comes up, but I found 3. A woman in 2003, a teenage girl in 2011, and a man in 2019, all within 15 miles of that farmhouse. None of them were ever found. I thought about the different hair in the quilt, the gray strands, the dark strands, the light, soft, recent ones. I thought about how the quilt was made with the same meticulous care throughout, which meant the hair was added as each section was completed. Over time, across years, possibly decades, my wife opened another section of the quilt. More hair, different again. She estimated, based on the number of sewn bundles she could feel through the fabric, that there were at least 12 distinct groupings, 12 bundles of hair from what could be 12 different people. We turned it over to the police. They took it seriously, or at least they said they did. A detective came to our house, bagged the quilt, took photos. They said they'd run DNA if the case warranted it. That was over a year ago. I've followed up 3 times. Each time they say it's ongoing. But here's what I can't stop thinking about. The nephew told me there were over 30 quilts in that house. We bought one. The estate sale ran for the whole weekend. I don't know how many quilts were sold, or to whom, or whether anyone else opened the seams. And I think about the farmhouse. The nephew said he cleared it out, but he also said he didn't go through everything. He said there was a root cellar under the kitchen that he never opened because the door was swollen shut. He said it smelled down there, but old houses smell. He didn't think much of it. I drive past that road sometimes on the way to Lexington. I've thought about turning down it, going back, looking at the cellar myself, but I don't, because I think about those 12 bundles of hair, stitched in with such care, such patience, such pride. And I think about the fact that hair doesn't come from nowhere, and neither did the weight in that quilt. And that's gonna do it for this video. If you've had a strange experience at a yard sale, or if you've bought something that made you feel like something was wrong, send it to me. The email is in the description. Stay safe out there.
And that's where tonight's file closes, but the archives are far from empty. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and join us as we uncover more horrors, mysteries, and true crimes hidden in the horror archives. Until next time, keep the lights low, keep listening, because you never know what story we'll uncover next.